Hello there and welcome to episode 100 of my boat build project. My name is Panu and I am building this 15 meter or 50 foot liveaboard cruising sailboat from scratch here in Finland. It has now been 3 years since I started the actual build of the project. It has been a little bit slow. I'm a year and a half late of the original schedule, if I had any schedule. And it is going forward little by little, but as for this episode 100, I decided I'd do a question and answers video just to kind of involve you a little bit more with this channel. And I have received some questions from my patrons from YouTube and Instagram accounts and Facebook. So I'm gonna go through them now. And it happened so that today I'm actually going into road trip with this truck. And I'm going to purchase about 2,500 kilograms of lead for my keels. So I'm gonna just film these questions and answers during this trip. It is a gorgeous day. It's mid-October and today was the coldest night so far. So everything was kind of frozen and morning, but now the sun is shining and everything is warming up, and not yet winter, but fall is definitely on its way. Alright, let's then start with the obvious question from my patrons, and that is, any guess when the boat will be launched? And that is a good question. As I mentioned, I'm late for a year and a half from the original schedule. So the original schedule was sort of 5 years of the build, and I have to say that really depends of the financial situation mostly. So especially last year, the 2024 was really difficult. I had very little work, and there wasn't really much to do about that. I kind of just figured it out, and but I'm hoping that the next couple of years are better. I can get the funding from my work and of course from the videos and the Patreon. Of course, thank you so much for that. And it all depends from each other. So the problem of course is that when I have a lot of work, I have less time to put in the boat build, and vice versa. If I don't have much work, I have time, but then I don't have that much money to put on the boat build. And there is a big kind of purchases coming, like the carbon fiber for the masts. It's probably the biggest investment in the boat build. All the wood and stuff it's pretty cheap and stuff like that, by the carbon fiber that is definitely gonna cost a lot. So I am hoping to get this thing done in maybe 3 to 4 years from now. That's the goal right now, but we'll see about that. No promises there. I think that answers that question. Thank you, Paul. Then there's another question from my patrons. Albert wants to know about the cost breakdown of the project. And obviously now I'm not able to do that in this road trip. Maybe I'll do a separate video of the cost breakdown in future, but I did one maybe year and a half ago, and at the time there was just a few thousand euros gone into the actual boat build. That actually hasn't been changed that much, because the actual materials for the boat, they're pretty cheap. So just regular wood, some plywood, not even that much of plywood. The epoxy is most expensive, of course, and I have purchased some of that. I still have, I think, at least 60 kilos of epoxy left from my previous purchase. So that is the most expensive, of course. But I will still say that I'm below 10,000 euros altogether as for the boat materials. The rest of the stuff though, the tools and sandpaper and drill bits and screws and all kinds of stuff regarding of the boat itself or stuff around the boat, yeah, that is more, and that's several thousand euros per year. So that's that. And now, of course, this lead is one of the biggest purchases of the boat. The list price of the regular price of lead, if you go and buy it from some supplier, it's €1 per kilogram. So I'm gonna have to purchase 5 tons of lead, so that is 5,000 euros in there. Of course, this is a little bit cheaper when I buy it like a scrap. But the first batch of that lead, well, I have maybe 400 kilos or so. That was €1 per kilogram. But those are ready to go lead ingots. So that is a little bit more expensive. But yeah. But now when I purchase this, there's a majority of the lead purchased already. So that is good. But yeah, overall I cannot say the amount right now, but I'll check that. Maybe I'll put approximate number of the boat materials here in the screen afterwards. So thank you, Albert, for that question. Then there's Daniel from Patreon. Thank you, by the way, Albert, and thank you, Daniel, for being my patrons. His question is about the CNC router. Has it held up, and is there any changes I would make now? For those that have joined the channel later, the CNC router I'm using is my self-designed and mostly self-built as well. Well, I didn't actually build the parts, I had them made because I don't have tools to do those kind of things. Now I actually have. I have the CNC router. Anyway, I had it made, and the design is 100% done by myself. And yeah, I'm really pleased with the machine. It's a DIY machine, and it's just freaking amazing that you can build something like that from the off-the-shelf parts mostly. All the CNC stuff, the motors and spindle and stuff, they're all from eBay or similar sources. Some of the parts I purchased from local hardware, kind of industrial hardware suppliers, and yeah, the racks and pinions and stuff like that. But they are really, really cheap, those. The one thing that just costs a lot is the labor that goes into machining parts like that you need to the CNC machine. But yeah, overall I'm really, really pleased how it has been working. It has been working mostly flawlessly. There is really nothing wrong with the machine. I just yesterday finished the ballast keel timbers from the oak, the final pieces. We'll get back into that in the next video. And it just works. It's such an amazing machine, and I am so pleased that I built that. I learned a lot. I have been learning a lot of the logic, how should you do the program for that and stuff like that. It has been just amazing, and I can pretty much do anything with that. And there is still stuff to learn, and I haven't done much of the 3D kind of carving and stuff like that, but it's not a big deal. What would I change about the machine though? Well, there is a couple of flaws with the machine. One thing is that the gantry is a little bit too kind of flimsy. It should be more rigid to be able to cut more deeply, and those deep cuts, they're the problem, and that's because of the gantry is wobbling a little bit, and it's not much, it's fractions of a millimeter, but it's enough when the spindle is turning like 15,000 RPMs. If it gets to move even slightly, it creates problems, and I have been breaking those router bits, quite many, with that issue. So that is one thing. Cutting plywood and stuff like that, it's just, yeah. The machine is a little bit slow because of the rigidity issue, and of course I'm not really into the speed that much. anyway, so I'm not in hurry when I'm cutting stuff, so that's okay. So yeah, overall I'm really pleased. The second flaw, if you could say that, it's about the interference with the power supply for the spindle. So it's a 3-phase power supply that feeds the spindle with 3-phase. It's basically an inverter power supply for the spindle, and it creates a lot of electrical interference, electromagnetic interference. And because of that, I haven't been able to use any sensors with the machine. So I don't have any crash sensors or any kind of emergency sensors or stuff like that, because the interference kind of triggers them randomly. So I have put all those away. So it's that regard, that machine is pretty much illegal, but it's just for my own use. Nobody else uses it. And yeah, but yeah, I need, what would probably fix it, that I would take the power supply off from the cabinet. It's the mistake was that I put it in the same cabinet with all the rest of the electronics. The spindle power supply should be away from those and with separate kind of power input. That would probably fix that problem. I haven't done that because the machine overall works so well, so there's really not been any need for that. Maybe someday I will do that, but yeah, it's okay for now. But as what I would do differently now is that I wouldn't build one. I would buy used 6-axis CNC robot arm with enough kind of working area that I would be able to machine all the frames and all the shape of those frames in 3D shapes. So that would be the way to go, because yeah, it would have saved so much time with those frames just to be able to laminate them as a raw kind of frames and then put them in the machine and machine them off from there. So that would be the way to go if I do it now. All the kind of stem pieces, all the frames, everything could be done in 3D shape with the 6-axis machine. So yeah, that is the CNC. Overall, I'm very pleased that I have one. I can do anything with that, and yeah, it's just way to go. I cannot imagine any other way to do both like this. Doing all the measurements and all the shapes with hand, that just wouldn't be possible for me. Thank you for the question, and next question is coming from somewhere else. We get back into that in just a bit. Now I'm just enjoying the ride. Alright, couple of hours later in central Finland, let's continue with some questions. There is actually a couple of CNC related additional questions, so let's tackle those first. Yeah, what is the CAD software you're using to draw and feed your CNC? So as I have probably mentioned sometime before, my CAD software that I use as a CAD is ArchiCAD. That's what I use daily basis. I have used it 20 years and I have the license for that, and I use it daily all the time. So that is CAD software I'm using. It's definitely not the ideal software for designing a boat. There's plenty of problems you have to tackle with kind of these odd shapes and kind of compound curves and stuff. They're not really, it's not really possible to do any compound curve modeling very accurately with that. So the model of the hull has been done in Rhino, and that is then imported into ArchiCAD. But the rest of the stuff, all the design for the parts that I have done with the CNC, I have done in ArchiCAD. Mostly in 2D drawings, because they are just 2D cutting mostly. So that is CAD software, but as for CAM software, what I use to make the programs for the CNC, I used Fusion. And mostly because it's free and it's available for Mac, and I'm using Macintosh computers, so there's not really much options there. There's a couple of programs. I actually tried one additional CAM software, but it was so much more limited in options to make those programs, so I haven't really considered really to buy the license for that. The problem with CAM software, CAM refers to computer aided manufacturing, I believe. So it is the software that you import the CAD drawing and make the machine coordinates from. So that is the program between the CAD and the machine itself. So there's a couple of options. They are actually quite expensive programs to purchase, but Fusion is free to use when you're not using it commercially. So I'm using that. I don't really like Fusion that much. It's a little bit buggy and slow, even with my pretty powerful computer. There's some bugs, and the general logic of how you draw and do stuff it's so different from what I used to. I really haven't got so deep into that, but yeah, it works. There's plenty of good kind of ready to go logics when coming into that cutting, so it's pretty good to handle that. So it has been working fine nevertheless. So that is the CAD software stuff. And then there is a question referring to run sailing. You probably know the run sailing. They're in Sweden, making pretty similar sized boat as I am, but they're doing it full time. They have 200,000 to 300,000 subscribers, and they are doing the videos and the both full time, so they are going much faster than me. But they are using this handheld device. What is the name? I put the name here. They're using that to make the parts that they need. And the question was what I think about that. And yeah, it's a very interesting device. But I think the most important thing in that machine is that you don't have any constraints of the size of the thing you're doing. So you can make as big as you want and kind of just use your hands to steer the router. But of course, that one thing is that it's of course much slower, and you can't do any 3D kind of carving with that. The C value you can cut it is pretty limited, and you can basically just cut flat sheet materials with that. Maybe do some kind of I haven't used it, but I believe you can use V carving bit and carve letters and stuff like that, but not really 3D stuff like my stem piece, for example, would be impossible to do with that. So yeah, I think it's a good device for random stuff to do, and for a single project like Ran is doing, and they probably have a pretty good experience with that. So it definitely it works. But I still prefer a little bit more industrial machinery to do big things like this. And of course you can just set it up and leave it working. With that manual thing, you have to be steering it all the time, so it's much slower and takes your time when you're using it, of course. So yeah, that's my thoughts of the thing and for the CNC. Now let's take another subject completely. Okay, there is a couple of questions about the keels. If you don't know, I'm gonna have a double keeled boat, so it will have a so-called bilge keel, so 2 keels like that on the bottom of the boat. And the first question was that how heavy the keels will be. Just a second, I will check that. How much the keels weight, and is there any more strengthening needed for the mounts? So that's a good question. So the keels will be 5,000 kilograms in total, so 5 tons, and so 2.5 tons per piece. That is the approximation right now. We're gonna check that before we actually do the keels. We check the weight of the hull and all that stuff. Displacement of the boat in total is 15,000 kilograms, so 15 tons, which is pretty light for the boat this size. For example, AML boat, Delos for example, I think it weighs way over 20 tons, and it's slightly longer, it's 55 or something like that, but still that weight is much higher compared to the length. So this boat will be pretty light for its size, which 1/3 of the weight is in the keels. And if there needs any additional strengthening, yes, they need. The first thing, of course, is these oak pieces. I have totally overbuilt them for what I see in the plans that I got, but I kind of wanted to do them oversized and very, very sturdy. And as for the mounts, there of course will be those keel bolts, but there will be steel parts inside of those keel bolts going around the frames, so that the frames will be kind of pushed against the keels, and those act as washers as well, but they also bind the keels into the frames. So yeah, there's gonna be those steel parts to reinforce the mounting of the keels. So I think that answers that question. But there is another question about the keels. I mentioned in some video a while back that bilge keels would be a little bit more efficient than normal keel, upwind and stuff like that. So I maybe need to explain that a little bit, although I'm not an expert in this thing, but the information what I have got of this matter is that if you think there's a single keel in a single keel boat, it of course it is a symmetrical foil shape, which means that it is the same kind of shape on both sides. And when the boat is going upwind, that boat will drift a little bit with the wind, and the keel will create opposite lift to make the boat go straight. It really doesn't go straight, but it kind of drifts still a little bit. That's called leeway, I believe, in English. That drifting motion. So the boat is not going straight, but it's drifting a little bit off the wind, so to speak. But now when we have these double keels and the boat heels, so that the bilge keel will actually go straight down when the boat is heeled, so that the fact that it is straight down makes it more efficient. Of course, it doesn't kind of allow the water to kind of go around the keel that much. But the more important thing is that the shape of the foil is asymmetrical, which is much more efficient than the symmetrical foil. And that brings that compared to its size, the keel should be more efficient to preventing that leeway motion. So it creates more lift. But of course we have the second keel all the time in there, and in this case the keel also is smaller than it would be when there's only one keel. So that brings the fact that they kind of compensate each other, so to speak. So even though it is more efficient at itself, but the fact that it's smaller and there is a second keel to kind of creating a lot of drag, that brings it probably with the same performance that you would have with a similar size keel as one keel. So yeah, I have learned that this kind of boat with double keels, it should point a little bit higher because of that extra lift, but there would be a little bit more leeway because of the size of the keel, because the size is of course smaller, so there's not that much area to compensate that anyway drifting. So that is what I learned about these. I haven't actually sailed any double keel boat, so well, we'll see how that performs, but this is not the first time this kind of thing is done. It's pretty common system been over the years, and with a cruising boat like this, the upwind ability is not really that crucial anyway, so yeah, that's that. Then there is a question of the hull, the boat hull, and when I'm expecting to cover the hull. So my schedule was to start planking the boat, so covering the hull in this month, so in October. It should be on its way right now, but it's not, obviously. There is still a little bit to do before we can start that, and I still don't have the planking material. I'm postponing that as long as I can because there is no room for me to store all that material in the shed right now. So the covering of the hull will start as soon as possible. In a few weeks, I believe, I hope. And the method I'm doing the hull is, well, I think it's traditional strip planking. So there's gonna be maybe 5 to 7 centimeters wide and 28 millimeters thick strips of wood. It's gonna be spruce, and we're gonna strip plank the hull with epoxy. So all the strips will be glued into the frames, and they will be glued into each other. They will be edge nailed to each other or screwed. We'll see what method I will go with, so that the planking will make the shape of the boat, and yeah, then all the seams are filled with epoxy. And after that, there's gonna be 2 layers of pine veneer on top of that. So I already have the veneer. We did it last summer. It's been over a year now since we did those veneers. They are sitting on the shed there. So we're gonna cover the 2 layers of veneer, and the planking of course is horizontal, and the veneers will be on 45 degrees like this, and another 45 degrees like that. So those 3 layers will form the actual structure of the hull. And when those are done, it's all gonna be covered with 1 layer of fiberglass, just single layer, maybe a protective layer of fabric, not fiberglass but another kind of fabric. I'm not sure of that yet, but yeah. Then the last layers will be fairing compound and sanding the hull in its final shape, and then paint. So that is the hull. And from the inside later on, we're gonna sand, of course, the epoxy remains from the inside, and cover with thin layer of fiberglass to cover the inside surface. So 3 layers of wood, 1 layer of fiberglass, maybe 1 layer of additional fabric, and then fairing and paint. That's the hull material. Then there is a couple of questions of the overall idea behind the project and what I'm gonna do with that. So what made me start the project in the first place, and where I'm going to go with that, with the boat eventually when it's finished. Well, it's now probably maybe 10 years ago. I kind of my kids were kind of growing fast. They were 10-ish years old, and I started to kind of be professionally where I wanted to be, kind of professional architect. There's really not much more I can do with the profession I have, and kind of everything was kind of starting to settle a little bit, and the next phase of life probably is to have a next dream to accomplish. And I have always been kind of interested in sailboats or sailing or ocean, but I really before that had any experience of that or any kind of close friends or family or relatives that had a sailboat or stuff like that. But I started to read some blog texts. It was before YouTube was really a big thing, and started to kind of figure if that would be possible to kind of have a boat. And then I came across kind of some blog text that kind of said that there is this kind of possibility of this cruising lifestyle, which was pretty unknown to me before that. And that kind of hit me quite hard, that have this kind of lifestyle. You can just cruise with your boat all over the world, and yeah. So that was kind of the first introduction of this lifestyle thing. And the boat really is just a tool for doing that lifestyle, I guess. So then I started to think about getting a boat at some point, but as I mentioned in my very first video, I believe I said that the salary of an just regular architect in Finland is, although we are highly educated professionals, the salary is pretty bad. So I should have continued with the information technology that I started to study in university back in the days. But yeah, I'm an architect. It's my dream job. It's okay. It's not really that demanding, and it's technical enough, but easy enough for me at least. So I couldn't afford to buy a boat that could take me all over the world, and it wasn't really time for that either back then. So kids were still kids, and we had a house and stuff like that. So I started to kind of, as I am nerd as I am, try to kind of figure out what kind of boat would be the best boat for me. And quite fast I actually came across different opinions of what boat is a good boat, and there was really three things, if I remember right. One was that I want a boat that have a good view outside, so not like a basement boat with all the traditional sailboats are, that you go down below and be there in the basement when you're cruising in the world's most beautiful places, and then you're just down below and sleeping in there and see nothing. So that was the first. You need to see outside. Well, that narrows the boat options quite a lot already. But then there was this article. I'm not really sure where that came from, but I saw an article of what's wrong with traditional boats somehow, or the rigging of the traditional boat, with the mast and all those wires holding it up and stuff like that, and how much work and effort there is to keep it up, and how many things there is to break, and of course the efficiency part of that, of course, so that the traditional rig is not very efficient to actually make the boat move. So that was the second thing. I wanted to have a easy maintain and safe rigging of the boat, and that came up with that freestanding carbon fiber mast thing. Although they don't necessarily need to be carbon fiber if you're just making a smaller boat or even bigger boat. I believe that boat model I actually have as a basis with my project, it originally has a wooden mast. So it's completely possible to make a wooden mast for a boat like this. But yeah, I'm going with carbon fiber and rotating mast. It makes it a little bit more complicated, but it should bring so much more possibilities to to adjust the sails. Yeah, anyway, those were the two things. I might have said three, but really there's two things that and those kind of boats, they don't really exist. View outside and freestanding masts. So that was the kind of the thing I wanted, and then I started to kind of look at if it's possible to design or build your own boat. And yeah, it definitely is possible. It's done as long as human being has been like we are. There has been boat builders and boats have been built. So I figured I am pretty good doing stuff, so I might build a boat, and quite fast I came to the conclusion that making thing with modern technology like a CNC and stuff is the way to go. So that really the dream started maybe already 10 years ago, and then I started to kind of going forward with the dream, and yeah, that was the thing that got me started. But what I really want to do with the boat, well, I mentioned the cruising lifestyle, of course, is a really interesting concept, and I really want to. I can see me doing that, because I never have really had a interest of being stuck in one place. Although I haven't done much traveling in traditional methods anyway, but I never have had a feeling that I belong in somewhere and this is the place I need to be. Maybe that's kind of the thing. When we had that house, it was our own house, and I did a lot of work with the house, and it was our own, but still the place where the house was eventually, and the idea maybe of that thing, it never really felt that this is my permanent home and permanent place where I want to be. I guess I'm not like that. So yeah, the cruising lifestyle, the boat is your home and you to take it wherever you want to go. Well, it's near ocean, that is. So that really is something that reflects with my idea of life living. So yeah, but then there is this unofficial plan or kind of goal that I would go and do snowboarding in all different continents with my boat. Now, not snowboarding with the boat, but by the boat. Going with the boat South America and take my snowboard to the mountains and do some snowboarding there. And North America, Australia has a few ski resorts, and I think South Africa has those too. So yeah, and Japan is definitely one of the locations I would like to go someday. So now I have no really dream of sailing around the world. That's not I don't think that's much of a thing for me, really. But there's plenty of places all over the world I would like to visit. So I guess that's that. But yeah, the snowboarding thing is kind of the fun little unofficial goal with this thing. We'll see if I'm still young enough to do the snowboarding when the boat is ready. Yeah, I think that answers the question. All right, the lead is in the truck and now I'm leaving back. Sun has set and it's getting dark, so I'm gonna do the rest of the video stationary here before I leave, because I cannot use the light here when I'm driving. So let's check out the rest of the questions and that way get this video done. Yeah, so the one technical question here still is that what kind of engine I'm planning to install to the boat. And I'm gonna go with same kind of setup that Uma has, Sailing Yuma. You may know the channel, Dan and Kika. I actually met them last year in Metstrade. Maybe I'll meet them this year as well. But they are gonna install, or actually they have already installed 2 electric motors on their boat. And I'm gonna have a similar setup, so 2 electric motors with sail drives. Probably not Ocean Volts because they cost so much, and if I don't get any sponsorship with them, but they are Finnish company, so maybe that's possible. Anyway, 2 electric motors, like side by side, so that I can use them like a catamaran with the 2 throttle controls and stuff like that. So I won't be needing any bow thruster. And that way I can get quite a lot of energy from spinning the propellers when I'm sailing. So they work, of course, as hydro generators as well. But as for the generator itself, the boat is going to be quite big compared to Yuma, for example. And there's going to be huge battery banks. Not sure yet how big, because they develop and the prices go down all the time. I haven't really decided fully yet, except for the principle. So there might be need for some kind of generator in the boat. I'm not sure about that. I would like to avoid that if possible. But if I'm thinking of being in the kind of northern hemisphere during winter times, it's pretty theoretical you can get all the energy just from solar during the winter times. But I don't know. But that is of course something you can add later, the generator, if the system doesn't work well enough without that. But as for fuel, I have planned to have a small diesel tank in the boat, one for the generator, but secondary for the heating, because, well, at least here you pretty much need the heater all the time. Maybe there is a few weeks in summer when you don't need that, but mostly you do, because the water is always a little bit cold here as well. So most of the time, if you spend a little bit more time in the boat, you need heater. And there's of course possibility to use heat pump to heat the boat, especially when it's well insulated. It could be a viable option, because the volume of the boat is really not that big if you think about it. For example, compared to the like a house or apartment, it's really not that big, but it needs to be well insulated, and of course the ventilation system of the boat needs to be kind of thought in that way too. It shouldn't kind of just waste the heated air outside, but there needs to be some kind of heat exchanger in the ventilation system as well. So we'll see about that. But for the engine, no, there's not gonna be main engine in the boat. There's gonna be 2 electric motors, and we'll go from there. We'll see what the setup will be, but that's the starting point at least. Yeah, there was one question about the rigging still. So the question is, have you had any second thoughts of a plan B of the rigging? How do you think the boat will behave in various conditions, such as sailing close to the wind or off it? Yeah, that's a good question, because the rig is, well, it's the most special thing in the boat, I think. And the masts will be rotating masts, not wing masts. Probably they won't be wing masts like a shape of a wing, but they will be just oval but rotating masts. And that way the efficiency, especially off-wind efficiency, should be much better than conventional rig, because you can, if you think about the boat is going like on that way, the sails are like this, and the wind comes from the side, and when you turn the sails like that, in conventional rig, the mast kind of creates a big vortex area behind the sail in this area. And when the mast rotates with the sail, the mast kind of acts as a front end of the wing, which the sail essentially is. And it should make the wing much more efficient, especially off wind. Beam reach and off wind and those directions. And when you're going fully off wind, you can actually rotate the mast so that the one sail is like that, it goes over 90 degrees, and this other sail goes over 90 degrees like that. So we have two sails, and it kind of creates self-aligning system that if there's some wave that moves the boat like this, this sail will push the boat back to the course. So there is a lot less probability to accidental jibes. You probably don't need any preventer lines, and it's much safer in many aspects. And then if you're going off the wind, like slightly off wind, you can put the both sails like that, and they actually function as a wing even when sailing off wind, which normal sails don't do. They just push the boat. They're creating just drag with the wind, but this kind of setup, it creates lift with the wing. So that should be much more efficient. As for close to the wind, like to the wind sailing, there shouldn't be much of a difference, except of course there's no head sails, so tacking is just so much easier. You just turn the wheel and the sails just go from side to side. Yeah, well, they are as efficient in close to the wind as normal sails in that sense. If that makes any sense. I'm not really a physicist. I can't explain mathematically how they work, but I understand pretty well how sails work in general, so yeah. But one additional thing with the rotating masts is that you can reef at any point of sail without turning the boat into the wind. For example, if you're going beam reach, both sails are like this, you want to reef the first one or the second one, you just release the sheet, the mast will rotate and the sail will start flapping. You can do the reefing and then you just tighten the sheet back again, and then it's reefed. You don't have to do anything with the boat. If you compare this to the normal boat that the mast doesn't rotate, easing the sheet doesn't really make the kind of the track that loose, so you still need to turn the boat into the wind. But you can basically reef these sails when going downwind or any point of wind. Yeah, that's one kind of safety point of view as well. And of course, safety thing is that when there is no braking things to hold the masts up, there is no braking things to hold the masts up. So there is just a mast, and there is nothing to brake to kind of compromise the rigidity of the masts. So, except for the mast itself, but they should be so much overbuilt that it's really not a concern in normal conditions, at least. So yeah, as for plan B for these masts, well, maybe the plan B would be that I ditch the rotating function of the masts, just make the stationary freestanding masts. But I think the rotation gives so many additional advantages, so I really try to do it that way. Yeah, there's no plan B at this point, at least. We'll see when we get the prices for those big bearings we need for the masts. But they might be so expensive that that might change the attitude towards this mast. But yeah. Okay, but now I think the questions were there. Thank you so much for sticking around with my project, and we'll get this bunch of lead back to the workshop, and well, maybe in a year or two we'll start melting them into the keels, but that will still wait quite a long time, so no hurry there. I still need I think around 2 tons of lead in addition of this what I now have. So this was a nice road trip. Now I'm starting my journey back home. It will take 5 or 6 hours depending on my kind of breaks. That's it. My speech is already going so badly that I will now quit this jammering, and thank you so much. And this 100 video was, yeah, it's just mind-boggling, and I hope to get the next video done in very soon. I have filmed most of the content for the next video already, so we'll see what that brings to you. Thank you so much for my patrons. Thank you so much for everybody that follows me in the Instagram and Facebook, and of course you subscribers. Please go and check out the Patreon and the t-shirt shop. These headphones are also affiliate linked up there. They are very good quality Finnish design noise cancelling headphones. There's a link down in the description to get those, and of course if you're in Finland, at least go and check out the Materialshop.fi webshop if you need any kind of epoxy or silicone mold making materials or anything like that. If for hobby or professional work, they have you covered. So yeah, thank you, and we'll see you in the next video, and now I'll just head back home. Bye bye.